Suze Orman is at it again. She says the 4% rule is very dangerous. Very dangerous. And she wouldn't advise anybody to use that rule. Suze. Suze. She wants you to work until you're 70 or longer. And stop this taking Social Security, retiring at 60 and taking Social Security at 62. Dude, I do not like Suze. I don't hate her. I try not to hate anybody. But I think she's a bad person when it comes to advising people on retirement. I wonder how many people didn't retire based on Suze's silly advice and instead, keeled over at their desk or on the job or commuting to work. I was talking to these two people yesterday, man. Husband commutes 2 hours to work each way, an hour each way. Wife commutes 3 hours to work, an hour and a half each way. That's 5 hours a day on the road between them. It's like, man, every day you're taking a risk in your hands, you know what I'm saying? Thankfully, you don't have a whole lot longer to do this because they're looking good, as most of my clients are. But it's disgusting that Suze would perpetuate this nonsense. Look, and Bill Bengen says himself, and I'll show you with the article. He goes, look, my 4% rule is based on the worst case scenario. Now I've upped it to about 4.7. I like Bill Bengen. Bill Bengen started the whole rolling thing where we say we don't just look at a Dave Ramsey-ish. The market's average 12, you could take 8. Oh, my goodness. I like Dave. So my whole thing about Dave, he's ruining, in my opinion, the franchise with his craziness, man. Well, you're doing the same, Josh. Well, I'm doing the same based on legitimate stuff. Like, we're not going to run a society on wind and solar. It's just not going to happen. You can believe that, and I can tell you there's unicorns and Santa Claus going to come down the chimney. But believe it or not, we're not running a society, at least the current society that we have, on the wind farts and unicorns from the solar. It's and then hydro. Come on, man. So that might piss you off. Don't care. It's the reality. Dave Ramsey, on the other hand, he has a lot of good stuff when it comes to debt, but his investment stuff and how much you can take from your portfolio is just bad. That's almost the equivalent of saying we can run an economy on wind and solar. You just can't, man. Yeah, I'm sorry. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. And no, I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm not a physicist. Oh no, it's like you bad. Oh. Anyway, but Suze Orman's bad because again, she's telling people they can't. She scares people into keep working. It's not what we're put on earth to do, my friends. We're not put on earth to keep working. Look, working is good. I don't deny that working is. I mean, you get value from work. I'm not saying labor in of itself is a bad thing. I'm not saying you sit around in retirement and you refrain from doing any kind of labor. Labor is a good thing. I'm saying at the end of the day is a kind of labor you do that you like to do and a kind of labor you do that you have to do. And once you get to a certain threshold, the labor you do that you have to do, you can transition out from that and go into the labor, the work that you want to do. Like I like to be outside in the garden. You know what I'm saying? Who knows what it is? I like to do research that hopefully helps some of you guys. I just happen to get paid for it. Maybe you like to be like my man. Let me show you this guy right here. Check this out. On the Don. He's making this stuff. And look at that, man. Beautiful selling. Some people, he lives in Colorado. Some people drove from like, I don't know, Oklahoma City or something like that to his house to buy these. Look at that, man. Look at these things. Crazy. Look at that. Look at the detail that goes into that. Look at that. Freaking gorgeous. Look at that. He's got this little thing here. Look at that, man. Freaking gave up his working for corporate America and to go into a labor of love that he loves to do. He goes to all these farmers markets and shows like they have whatever those shows, I'm talking about, where a bunch of people set up these little knick-knack shows and whatnot, not flea markets, but you know what I'm talking about. And he goes to these places and he sells his wares, and then he finds people that say, man, that is awesome, Ron. Don, can you do it for me? And he doesn't charge he charges a hefty fee too, relative to his labor. And when I say hefty, I'm not saying he's making billions of dollars. He doesn't need billions of dollars, but he's like, I'm getting paid to do something I like to do. And Suze Orman is telling you to do the exact opposite. She's saying, just keep working at some crappy old job and wait until you're 70 or longer. And that's just not what we want to do. And then she's going to say let's just see what she says here, because it's so freaking dumb. I'm like, Suze, are you really? Here's what she says. At the same time, Americans need to work until at least 70 so that your assets have more of a chance to build, and delay taking Social Security to your 70 as well. All right. And here's what she says. You can face. So So she thinks you should take no more than 3%. So she's just pulling 3% out of her butt because she doesn't know what she's talking about. She goes, you could, economic volatility could change the cost of living to the extent that the 4% doesn't meet your needs. There can be stock market swings that impact the value of your retirement portfolio, or further interest rate hikes that make any debt or loans that you have more expensive. And I like what Bill Bengen says in answer to that. He goes, he says, my 4% rule is actually based on the worst case scenario. An investor who retired in October 1968, who ran into a just terrible perfect storm of bad stock market results and very high inflation, which forces withdrawals up each year. And so Bill Bengen says, I've now adjusted that to the 4.7 rule. Now, I even think I don't think that's based on reality, because again, I love Bill Bengen, but his retirement scenario assumes that your spending goes up each and every year, adjusted with some measure called inflation, be it CPI, however, you need to use the CPI, but still, there's no evidence of that. There's just none. There's no empirical data. You might have an anecdote of evidence, but that's not, certainly it's not empirical. The evidence is the exact opposite, that your retirement spending goes down. There's one guy who challenged me on that. He said, but Josh, I've cut all my expenses down, so I'm only spending $3,000 a month or whatever it was. I said, okay. I mean, you might be you might be the differential, but if you actually, when I talk about my book, I don't have it right here, Relax and Retire, if you actually look at the cost of things that you bought back 20 years from now versus now, these cell phones, the TVs, the air travel, all that stuff, a lot of this stuff is cheaper, significantly cheaper than it was before. Now, will that continue? I don't know. But also, a lot of times people don't eat as much. They don't buy as new clothes. They don't have as much insurance they have to cover because the kids are out of the house. All this stuff, man, all this stuff. They don't go on vacations as much. They don't buy new cars. So if you're down to the bare bones, $2,000, $3,000 a month, yeah, you probably are going to have to spend more money as it goes up, as it fluctuates. I don't have any denial of that. But that's just simply not true for the vast majority of people, as the evidence shows us. It's just not true. And I'm just telling you right now, man, you can say all day long. You can keep working. I'm not telling you not to. If you're worried that word, keep working. I don't care. I'm just saying there's a point that some people got to say, what these people like Suze Orman have told me has just been wrong. And there's no evidence to back it up. Oh, you're going to have a massive long-term care needs. Suze Orman reminds me of just that woman who said, actually my wife's, matter of fact, who talks about because we have a couple kids with allergies, and she sees these Facebook posts where a kid gets killed from allergy, from peanut butter. It's horrible. But my wife just worries sick about it. She goes, well, that could happen to one of our kids. I said, it could. I'm not denying that. It could. The likelihood of that happening is so low, not to make it so we don't pay attention to it. 1 second. We don't want to pretend that likelihood doesn't exist. We prepare for it, but you can't let it live your life for you. See what I'm saying? It's kind of like, a plane crash in Malaysia. That means if I get on this plane, I'm going to die. You're allowing a fear irrationally to control your life. It's not a good way to work, to live. Say, no, the likelihood of me dying for this one thing is very, very small. I should worry about it, I should prepare, but I'm not going to let it control me. It's the same thing with Suze Orman's silliness. The likelihood of you spending significant amount of money for long-term care is just not high. I mean, you could, which is why we want you to have your house paid off. We don't want to have any debt and all that, but the likelihood is so small, it's certainly not worth it for you to sit there and say, oh man, I can't retire because of this one thing. That isn't likely to happen. Again, if you're really under that concern, or you have some evidence that it could be you, all of your parents were in some assisted living skilled care facility for years and years and years, by all means, the vast majority of us, that's just not true. Anyway, so Suze Orman, pound sand. I'm going to share with you this link to this video, by the way, that this lady had done on Suze Orman, which is fantastic. How Suze Orman scammed the working class. This isn't the original. It wasn't Seekers of Truth. It's some other lady. I'm not sure who it was, but it's a great video, man. So I'll put that in there. So anyway, if you have any questions or thoughts, put in the comments, put in the show notes. I'll do your thoughts. All right, we'll see you. God bless.